This here is a rare occasion these days. This is a chestnut tree. Okay. These leaves are pretty easy to identify. You got the little teeth on them. They're quite large. Some are small, but they're pretty large. And the fruit is going to be one of these right here. Okay, it's really easy to identify. Don't try to open it with your hand. Sometimes you can just put them right between your feet and push each side of your foot on one side or the other, and it'll open it up, and you got a chestnut inside. And we'll gather some of these and take them home. And here's one that's open. This is when you know they're good. So we'll take these home and open a few of them up for you. That's a chestnut tree. Very short growing tree, but very oblong. Grows all over like that, just kind of all over the place. Okay, so we collected a fair amount of chestnuts, and you see I just got them all laid out on a little cookie sheet here. And here's some that are still in the outer protective shell. This thing here will stab you and they hurt. It's like a cactus almost. Now what I want to explain is just how you prepare these. What's the best way to eat them? And really, it's like a coconut. It's just got so many different uses because one, they're low in fat and they're high in fiber. Okay, they have more starch than a potato, so they're actually used around the world as a potato substitute because they're so rich in that fiber. Now what you're looking for essentially is the ones like this that are opened. Okay, sitting on the ground, probably already fell off the tree, and you would just simply open them up. Now you can use these ones and dry them out that are already like this, and what you would do, I have my boots on to show you, you find where it's gonna open. Right there you can kind of see a little bit of a crack. Okay, now what you're gonna do is you're gonna step on each side of this very carefully. Get both your feet under it at the same time. Just kind of peel apart. Okay, see how that opened for you? And then, I mean, the easiest thing to do is wear gloves. And then you should have a couple little nuts in there. Okay, this one's no good. Too early. There's no nut in it. Okay, so if you see one that's small like that, you can see this nut is not big. I squeeze it, it's squishy. It means there's nothing in there but a little bit of fiber. Like if you were to open this, I don't know if I can do it with one hand, but they'll just be like a bunch of, here we go. See how that's got that little bit of fiberness to it? There's no nut, it's just kind of cottony in there. Okay, no good. So that's why I said it's best to have these ones that have already opened, because that means the nut is mature. And if you're wearing gloves, you can just pop them all open, but if you're out in the woods and you didn't have any, you could just simply step on them like that and work that outer shell off with your foot. Good. Now, what about eating them raw? A lot of people wonder if you can eat them raw. Sometimes they taste pretty good raw, but there's a lot of tannins in this. You should not eat them raw. You should at least cook them, boil them, something to remove them tannins. Alright, so make sure you do that, or you could end up having some very serious digestive discomfort, is the best way to put it. So that's what the nut looks like. Okay, very easy to identify. Should not have a problem identifying these. You're not going to find too many things out there that look like this. I showed you what the tree looks like in the leaves. The tree is very odd. It just grows all over. It has some frilly bark, some very rough textured bark, and you're going to have sometimes one, sometimes two of these nuts. You know, this one here's a little smaller. Sometimes you're going to end up with one big one like this. Okay, chestnuts are a wonderful, wonderful thing. If you ever found one of these in a survival situation, God is on your side. Okay, they're delicious. These are my favorite of all the nuts. Pecans are great, but chestnuts are better. Okay, they're really not even a nut the way they are starch-wise. they're almost like a potato because their texture is different. They're kind of squishy almost, you know, and they're just so sweet. They're delicious. So I'm going to go ahead and roast these up, and I just wanted to say you can literally grind these into flour, candy them, put them in soup, put them in salad. There's so many different things you can do with this. You'll just have to look up recipes of chestnuts. But if you ever find a chestnut tree, because like I said, they are rare, if you ever find one and get yourself a good handful like I got here, this really isn't that many. There's plenty more on that tree. I just wanted to grab them and go quick. And you could simply make yourself a wonderful treat for family, friends, whatever. But just remember, bring a pair of gloves if you're going to do it. These things hurt really bad. Now if you were to open one up, it has 2 little holes in it like this, or more holes. Give it a squeeze. Okay, see how that just popped open? It's a bad nut. Something's burrowed in there, gotten in there, and eaten your nut. It's not good. Discard. If you squeeze a nut and it just kind of has a squishy texture to it, or opens like this one did, you notice there's a couple holes in it, just discard it. You're looking for the solid ones with a good color. If it's black, looks like it's kind of molded a little bit, that means these bugs probably burrowed in there. So I just wanted to make a quick note of that. Just when you're gathering, just kind of check them so you don't end up mixing a whole bunch of bad ones in with your good ones. Okay, and this is what it looks like after you take the shell off. See, it's got all them holes in there. It means you got a worm. He's just hosting off this and using its nutrients to grow. I don't know where he is. I saw him a second ago. He's probably back inside. There he is. He's in that hole right there. Probably can't see him because I can barely see him. But that's what you don't want. Just save the time. Give them a quick squeeze test. And you'll see them holes in them too. If they have any little tiny hole, that means something went in there and laid an egg. There was one more thing I wanted to point out here. You know, I tell you there's no real look-alike to that right there. But what if you find a nut on the ground? Okay, this right here looks quite similar. It is not edible. Supposedly you can make them edible, but they tell you it's not worth it. This is a buckeye. Okay, if you look at this nut very carefully, you can see the differences in the two. Okay, chestnuts are going to have this little point. They're going to have the little flat side on them. Some of them don't though, so I guess I wouldn't recommend going by just that. But buckeyes have that little eye, okay, and then they're brown. Chestnuts are going to be quite hairy. They're always hairy, especially towards the top here. And buckeyes are not. But to the untrained person who just saw a quick chestnut, might see this on the ground, oh, that's a chestnut, and eat it. You don't want to do that. I mean, it's not going to kill you, but they're not edible. So don't mistake the two. Look at the difference between buckeye and chestnut. Okay, I just wanted to point that out real quick. This is the husk that you will see a buckeye come in. Very different from a chestnut. So definitely make sure you got a chestnut tree before you go gathering. Okay, now we're going to actually get to the point of roasting these nuts, and I'm going to show you a couple different ways to get the shell off and roast them. And one way is you're supposed to cut the X. You know, the traditional way is you cut the X in the nut, and some people say to do it on the flat side, which is here, and some people say lay it on the flat side and cut it here, because everyone always cuts their fingers. Well, I'm going to show you a quick way where you shouldn't have to worry about cutting your fingers, and it really don't matter which side you cut it on, as long as you have an X like this one here. I cut an X on the flat side just to show you, but some of them don't have a flat side. Chestnuts are known to do that. So what we're going to do is use the X method and another method, which is going to involve this water I have over here on the boil, where I simply use a chef knife here and I'll cut it in half. Now I personally like this method because it's faster, it's simple. You just need a sharp knife, and then you can see if the nut is good or not. Okay, you just simply cut it right in half. Alright, so we come over to another one. Cut it in half. Alright, so we grab another one. Right down the center. Now you gotta have a nice sharp knife, or these things are pretty hard to cut. So we're gonna do a few batch like that, and we'll do a few where we cut the X. Okay, now real quick, if you cut this X in here, what you want to do is you want to hold this here. Now, using a knife is definitely a good way to cut yourself, cutting something small like this. You want to cut down away from your fingers every cut. Okay, so what I do is I put the point in there and I rock the knife. Now you have to get all the way in there, or this thing could actually explode when you're roasting it. That's the main reason you do it. It helps in peeling, obviously, but what it's going to do is keep it from exploding. You don't want it to explode. Now we have an X. Okay, and when you put this in to roast it, you're going to move the pan around. You're going to shake these up so it cooks evenly. And I'm just going to put these ones right on the pan here. I'm only going to do a few on the pan like this, and the rest I'm going to do like that. I cut it in half. Now another way I've seen done is where you just simply cut it like that. You make one slice and this opens up and then you peel it off. I don't really like that one. I'd rather just cut it right in half. So we're going to make an X in some of these, and we're going to cut some of them like this, and then we're going to put these ones in the water. When it's boiling, you only put them in there for maybe a minute or two, and I'll get back with you when that happens. Okay, I only did a couple like this, like I said I was going to do, with the X in it. And what I did is crank this up to 425, and I'm going to put them in there for 15 minutes to warm up. 10 to 15. And then over here, I did this really quick, didn't take no time at all. Cut all these up. Okay, now I'm going to show you here. This is why one of the reasons I like this method. That's a good one. Okay, come over here. That is not a good one. Okay, at least now I know this is a bad chestnut. I don't want it. So this method shows you that you have good ones, you have bad ones, and when you get them from the wild, you know you're going to have that. So now what I'm going to do, I got this water boiling here. These all go in. You don't want to put them in there too long. Okay, maybe, like I said, 1 to 2 minutes. It's going to soften up that shell, and I have the pliers over here. And what you're going to do is you're going to pop this shell off, if it goes right, in one squeeze. So we put that in there, 1 minute. Alright, and I'm going to put these in here for 15 minutes, and after that I will show you the next step. Okay, these are our boiled ones. Now if you watch, I take the pliers, nut pops right out, skin comes off and everything. Okay, you want to do this when they're warm still. It's not going to be that easy when they're cold. See how nice that comes off? That is the simplest method to do this. Okay, that's all you got to do. They simply fall right out. Sometimes they jump away on you. But that is by far the easiest method I've ever used to do this. The other one, the X method, does not work as well. It works, but I definitely like this better. So I'm going to finish this up, and then we will show you how the X method works. Okay, took no time at all to put all these, or take all these out of the shell, and I pulled these out of the oven here. These are the ones that we made the X in. Okay, it's a little bit more work because you got to peel it all off and everything. A little bit messier, but it does work. And as you can see, those are a little bit more golden brown. Now you can roast the entire thing in the shell like this. You could put, I only left it in for 15 minutes because I'm going to roast it with these ones. But you could put this in there for 30 or 40 minutes and roast it in here until it's golden brown. But I'm going to just roast it with these ones here, and I'm going to put them in there for, you don't want to go too long, because if you over roast these, you actually ruin them. You can cremate them pretty much. So do like maybe 20 minutes, check on them, and then maybe go another 10 minutes, and you should be good. And that's what I'm going to do here. But as a survival standpoint, I would choose the boiling method because it's less calories, less work, it's faster, and you just boil them, pop them out real easy. Usually you have something. You don't even need the pliers if you don't have them. You could use anything, a little tool you made. You can make pliers out of a stick by splitting it and wedging something in it. So it's fairly easy to do it that way out in the wild. This way is a little bit more work, and I don't like doing too much work. I like to keep things simple. And they both work, but like I said, this is much more efficient, just splitting them in half and doing it that way. But now what we're going to do is we're going to put them in there for 20 minutes, check on them, then another 10 minutes, and we should be good to go. So there you have it. I'll give you a picture of the finished product when I'm done here.